And it's not just South Africa. 35% of women worldwide have experienced some form of domestic violence, according to the United Nations. 20 years ago, the White House signed legislation aimed at protecting women from violence. But events like the Pistorius trial, the scandal involving an American football player, and the brutal rapes in India are cited by activists to argue more action is needed. And joining me now to talk more about this is Kelly Powers. She is an attorney who focuses on cases involving international and domestic family law. Kelly, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
So here we are at a time when we're observing the anniversary of the Violence Against Women Act. Has the issue gotten any better, or are these just high-profile cases that we're seeing right now?
These are, of course, very high-profile cases we're seeing right now, but the issue is very prevalent in the United States, even when it's not in the media forefront, and even when the cases aren't involving celebrities. Nearly every day in the U.S., 65,000 women seek assistance in some way for domestic violence or intimate partner violence, whether that's through calling into hotlines for assistance, going to shelters, or seeking legal representation.
So do you know, through your work, here we are on the 20th anniversary of this act, has the problem lessened some through education and rehabilitation, or is it pretty much the same?
The Violence Against Women Act has definitely had a positive impact, and it has helped victims by providing mechanisms for victims to seek assistance that didn't exist before the act. But as we can tell from the statistics and from the stories we've seen over the course of the last week, there's really still a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. Well, why does it take something like the Pistorius case, or in the United States, the case of the American football player Ray Rice, to really get people talking again?
I think no one wants to really think about it, and no one wants to acknowledge that this is happening in our own communities or in our own families or with our own colleagues. And it is a matter that victims tend to keep private, because as we've seen this week, in particular with the #WhyIStayed and the #WhyILeft campaigns on Twitter, it's a very personal matter for victims, and victims can be judged and re-victimized when they make their choice to either stay or leave public.
Tell us a little bit about the role culture plays in domestic violence.
Domestic violence problems actually span all cultures and all socioeconomic backgrounds in ways that most people don't think they would. But there is no culture and no economic level that is immune to domestic violence.
I see. India's prime minister said the country should be ashamed right now of its rape situation, the crisis there. Last year, Saudi Arabia criminalized domestic violence victims, significance of laws, and having leaders discuss the issue. So are we making strides?
I think we are. I think the fact domestic violence as a problem is even being acknowledged is making strides, and that people are more willing to speak out on the issue than they were. It is the first step, I think, to making real progress for victims.
According to the UN, domestic violence accounts for 40 to 70% of female murders in countries like Australia, Canada, South Africa. The U.S. is marking laws, the anniversary of these laws, in a very different way. What else do we need to do to protect women and men in some cases?
Right. The problem isn't unique to the countries you've listed, of course. It's a problem here in America as well. For example, in Maryland, where I practice, just last year, 27 women were killed as a result of domestic violence. So it is a problem we still have to deal with here at home as well. And from what I've seen, awareness and advocacy, and even acknowledging the problem and working towards education, counseling, and help for victims and for the people who are committing the domestic violence is what will really create the change we need.
Alrighty. Kelly Powers, thank you so much for your time and your insight on this important anniversary. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.